I am John Lanning, MD. I practiced medicine for almost 50 years. I actually ran for Congress back in 1980 as a libertarian and was soundly defeated. I have always been interested in political science, and today's essay is named The Global Path to Liberty. However, this is a sequel to my previous essay, which was simply titled Path to Liberty. It involved the definitions of some terms like liberty, freedom, sovereignty, rights, words that we all have some idea, however vague, as to just what these actually mean. And the essay involved these definitions. So, the path to liberty is through the concept of individual rights. Liberty exists in a society where aggression is prohibited and individual rights are protected. The right to life is the basis of all rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thomas Jefferson, from the Declaration of Independence. What is not self-evident is the definition of rights. A right is a sanction to freedom of action. A natural right is a universal truth and does not require permission. The right to life is a moral concept and carries the foundations of a moral society where every individual is sovereign. However, this sovereignty carries the responsibility that each citizen must respect the sovereignty of others. Sovereignty is a philosophical concept denoting no higher power. This is the birthright of every individual, universally, and can never be taken away, though it can be violated. These rights may be violated by the initiation of force. The retaliation of force is justifiable on the grounds of our right to life and property rights, thereby protecting our liberty. The moral premise and legitimate function of the state is that it must earn its sovereignty by protecting the rights of its citizens, and only to the extent that it does so. Government must be subordinated to the same moral principles of its citizens and their individual rights. Property rights. The right to property is the right to the use and disposal of one's property. To implement that man's right to life, he must be free to act to acquire the values, the properties, including food, clothing, shelter, that he must have to sustain his life as required by his nature. Therefore, a code of values to sustain life is a moral code. These moral rights must be protected by a legitimate government. Freedom. The opportunity to support one's life by one's own effort is the very definition of freedom. Freedom is necessary to maximize the acquisition of property intrinsic to man's right to life. Man's right to life without property rights is a contradiction and is logically absurd. Therefore, an enlightened moral goal to the establishment of a well-regulated government is necessary with the sole purpose of enabling and ensuring the full potential of each of its citizens. This fulfills Jefferson's pursuit of happiness. Everyone deserves a fighting chance. Capitalism is the only economic system that recognizes individual rights and property rights, which fulfills the above goals of a free society. So proceeding on to today's essay, The Global Path to Liberty, virtually all the peoples of the world want the same thing: to live in a state of liberty and freedom, where their basic right to life will be protected by a government that acknowledges their sovereignty and where justice prevails based on an objective moral code. Within this moral code is property rights, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and freedom of religion. The moral authority. These freedoms are crucial. They are the driving force to achieve our goal to abolish authoritarianism. Just as the Quakers did in 1808, in a time when England was the largest slave trading country in the world, we will need the same moral authority and perseverance. This is clearly being shown today by the brave Ukrainians. We now have a chance to abolish slavery throughout the world in all its current forms of dictatorships and totalitarianism. Democracy. Pursuant to this moral goal and to carry the banner of freedom, a new institution must be established and could be appropriately named the Democratic Nations, as opposed to the current United Nations. The UN has lost its moral authority because it has brought the authoritarians in and even given them veto power over the freedom-loving states. In essence, we cannot allow the fox to guard the henhouse. We cannot recognize or allow the legitimacy of the dictators. The United Nations has given the dictators the moral sanction they need to establish an immoral and undeserved legitimacy. This has been the fallacy of the United Nations since its inception. The democratic nations will be an alternative to the United Nations, which has failed to restore peace through its basic structure and ineffective policies, as demonstrated by the war in Ukraine. Qualifications for admittance into the democratic nations. Membership in the democratic nations organizations should require, number one, free elections of all government officials. 2, term limits for these government officials. 3, recognition and protection of basic individual rights for their citizens, to include property rights and freedom of speech, of the press, and of religion. And number 4, trade only with other democracies and provide military assistance if and when necessary. Do not trade any commodities that could be used against democracies in any military conflict. This will clearly identify the separation between the democracies and the dictatorships and show a path to liberty. We should give the dictatorships a chance to join the democracies anytime after they have met these qualifications, such as the path to liberty. The sanctions against banking, as demonstrated by the Biden administration, can also be effective in bringing down dictatorships. A bank only for the democracies would also be desirable and should be created. By trading and banking with the authoritarian states, we are giving them what they most desire and need. It is called the sanction of the victim, with us as the victim and their sanction as a moral legitimacy. We must recognize that this is war, the democracies against the authoritarians. Collaborators. When Russia's collaborators, including other dictatorships, states, fall away and join the democracies, this will create a domino effect, and then, and probably only then, will the Russian dictatorship and other dictatorships collapse. The collaborators include military generals, especially those involved in current military conflicts. Perhaps considerations for redemption could be considered for those who bring Putin down, alive or dead. All others may pay a lethal price for their criminal conspiracy. Heroes. It will take heroic leadership to lead this revolution. But there are heroes amongst us. We must seek them out and give them encouragement and protection. This will give them and all of us hope for the end of dictatorships. Remember, a nation is sovereign only to the extent that it recognizes the sovereignty of its citizens. Russia and North Korea are clearly outlaw nations. There are others, but now they will have been shown a path to liberty with the democracies. Dictators. With the sanctions, dictators will experience ever-shrinking possibilities if they continue in their criminal activities. It will also give their enslaved citizens hope to throw off their chains and revolt. Justice for a dictator. We now have in our midst a truly evil man, a murderer and international criminal. He cannot be recognized as president of Russia or any other country. Under his leadership, Russia has become an outlaw nation. So he must be deposed and either assassinated by his citizens or brought to The Hague for trial for his criminal activities. We can start by demanding that Russia's ambassador to the United Nations renounce Putin and call for an end to his illegitimate war on Ukraine. If the ambassador refuses, then this will identify him as a Putin collaborator, and he can be dealt with accordingly. I would suggest a message to be put out internationally. Wanted, alive or dead, for murder and international crimes, a bounty of X millions of dollars for Putin and his collaborators. This could bring an end to the Russian invasion. This is war and should be treated as such. The people of Ukraine have demonstrated by their heroic struggle and given all freedom-loving peoples the courage and hope we will need to conquer the authoritarians of the world. President Zelensky should remain as the legitimate president of Ukraine, regardless of the outcome of the war. And lastly, cultural exchanges. Cultural exchanges between all the peoples of the world. Even dictatorships should be encouraged to share with the arts, music, sports, such as Olympics. This will demonstrate that we are all human beings with the same goals and dreams for ourselves and our children. It will be a powerful tool to bring people together and abolish racism and prejudice. We are more alike than different. Give ourselves the opportunity to enjoy all the other peoples and their cultures. The educational opportunities will be endless. Happiness is a good goal. It is possible, and we deserve it. This is my plan for world peace. It is possible, but now it is war. The democracies versus the authoritarians. Remember, the Russians, Chinese, and North Korean peoples are not our enemies. Only the dictators must be eliminated by their own enslaved citizens. In summary, this essay has given all the democracies the moral authority to intervene in any way they choose with all dictatorships, and specifically with today's Russian invaders. This revolution has begun with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It could end more peacefully with the economic sanctions against the dictators, with revolutionary courage as demonstrated by the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have earned the respect and admiration of all nations for their heroic efforts. Thank you.